just got access to Claude Code, and it's brought like some real joy.
Does the profession of software developer collapse? Does it shrink? Does it grow?
I think it changes. If I can get the computer to do what I want it to do, why do I need to speak its language? Why can't it speak mine?
Welcome to the Confluent Developer Podcast. I'm your host, Tim Berglund. In today's episode, I got to talk to my friend and colleague, Joseph Morais, and we wanted to spend some time processing what's going on with AI, honestly, tell the stories of our own experiences with agentic coding tools and speculate a little bit about where we think things are going. And I know that's speculation a lot of people are doing these days, but Joseph is a pretty interesting guy. He's worth talking to about this kind of thing. So we cover a lot of ground, talk about a lot of other resources that are linked in the show notes. So take a look at that as you listen in. Hey, Joseph, welcome to the show.
Hi, Tim. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. You are, as we know, the technical champion at Confluent.
Yes.
And I would describe you as being possessed of champion status. But what is a technical champion? What do you do?
I learned later that they gave me the role just because I'm one of the largest people here physically. And so
that is actually true.
Give him like an appropriate role. No, I'm joking.
If you're listening to the audio version, you can't tell. Even video, you can't
tell. You can't
tell. But I want you to know. I want you to know.
Yeah. I'm larger than average. I'm a big guy. But that's not the only reason. It's a good reason they gave me the title. But what I do here is kind of similar to what you and your team do in DevRel, where I interface with the community through social media, through a show that I host called Life is But a Stream. Except you got to squint and you can kind of see what you guys do, but it's a little different. Whereas a lot of your efforts are rooted in the community around open source projects, Apache software projects like Kafka, Flink, and Iceberg. I'm unabashedly pro Confluent, right? I have a very strong operators background, and the fully managed and easy to deploy-ness of Confluent is something that is really meaningful to me. And I tell everyone that if you love this technology, but you're having challenges running at its scale, or maybe there's some deficiencies in some of the features that come with open source, I am all about evangelizing the benefits of Confluent to enterprise.
I love it. Given that, what's on your mind? What are you thinking about today? I mean, I know we're all thinking about these days, but lay it on me.
Yeah, so I just got access to Claude Code, which almost this is 2026, so I feel like I'm a Luddite, but I just got access to it, and it's brought like some real joy back. Not that I don't love working with data streaming. I love working with data streaming, but there's been some inflection points in my career that have just been like brought the kid out of me. Like the first time I deployed a container, the first time I got into like Cisco iOS CLI, and I started, deploying configurations, just kind of different checkpoints in my career and these different kind of turns of technology. And they've always made me giddy, and I can see this again happening with Claude Code. But the reason I experimented with it is I kind of wanted to understand, how are developers and engineers and data scientists now and into the future going to be working with SaaS and CLI tools? And I really think there's going to be this intermediary, right? Whether it's Claude or Cursor or something equivalent, where you're not going to have to learn the CLI. You're going to have your AI friend learn the CLI. And it's going to learn the CLI faster and more in depth than you ever would. And suddenly you have this tool that's unlike a hammer, right? Hammer can't give you feedback until you're hitting too hard or you're using the wrong nail. It just knows how to hammer. I have this tool now that I can interact with and I can have deliberation with and will catch things that I didn't even think of. So, Tim, what's really exciting to me, and with the ultimate goal of kind of building an end-to-end demonstration using Claude and Confluent Cloud, but what I've noticed is it's kind of changed, it's shifted my thinking, and not just professionally, but even in my own personal life, and that I'm shifting from thinking objective-based to idea-based. Right? Or, we always have ideas, right? But for me, when I would have an idea, it would quickly shift into a set of objectives. And under those objectives, they're tasks. But now, because I know that I have these AI friends, whether they're Gemini or Claude or whichever comes out of the box that day, I can focus on the bigger idea. and let the agent or the coding assistant work on the objectives. And it's a really interesting thing, right? Because as it's starting to go through some of the objectives, I'm sitting there thinking, how can I make this idea bigger? Whereas I never really had the bandwidth to do that because it goes right from idea to objective to execution. But I can kind of work higher up. And it's exciting to think about that. And again, it's not just work. It's even in my personal life, like car shopping is now a completely different scenario because I'm having these long chats with Gemini about what I care about, what are the features. And for me to have replicated that level of effort to get the knowledge I needed would have just burnt hours and hours. So this, I don't know, we're heading into exciting times and I'm ready for it.
Well, I just want to unpack this and talk about it. This episode is about Tim and Joseph just thinking about AI.
Yeah.
Can I tell you my story?
I would love it.
It's a Claude Code moment, and Anthropic is not a sponsor of this episode. We are two guys talking about tools that we've used. There's no commercial relationship here or anything like that. About a year ago, on my team, Viktor Gamov on my team, who is, I think, competes with you for the title of tallest freestanding sort of technology
absolutely
advocate,
twin towers
in the world. It's unreal. Yeah. He was kind of an early advocate of AI-assisted engineering. And it was around a year ago. So it's February 27th, 2026, as we record this. I was working on a personal project. It was this LED version of a Nixie clock. And maybe I'll put some pictures online, put them in the show notes or something. It's a cool project.
Right.
And I wanted it to figure out whether it was in daylight savings time mode or not, like switch automatically. And it had the microcontroller, had some Wi-Fi, it could connect and blah, blah, blah. I got to fight through all that stuff. I was doing all the firmware by hand, which to me is like people who do woodworking. It's not because you want the chair, it's because you want to do the thing.
That's right.
And I thought, Victor's always on about this AI-assisted engineering. Let me get one of the popular tools and say, okay, I need this thing. I happen to have a Netlify account, so Netlify functions, make a Netlify function that will reverse geocode the IP address, figure out if you're in daily savings time, return a little message that has the offset from DST in a super easy to parse way because it's going to be resource constrained C++ code parsing it. No, it didn't work. It wrote the code correctly, but it couldn't do a Next.js build. And it couldn't deploy, once I fixed that manually, couldn't deploy to Netlify. Like, if there's one thing a model has lots of training for. So I'm like, okay, not ready for prime time. And in that same project, I needed some help with HTTPS support because once I got that to work, I could only serve an HTTPS. And again, in this microcontroller, it was just HTTP at that point. I got to fight through the stack. Claude, help me, right? To give me an example, the Raspberry Pi Pico SDK. It was garbage. The code was just no good at all. I had to fight through it, do it the old-fashioned way. Got it to work. And I thought, okay, I'm hardly a skeptic. LLMs are great, but, And then Christmas, just 2 months ago, I sat back down. People are talking about Claude Code.
Yep.
I'm like, let me try. And I just prompted out an application that worked.
Right.
Related to a similar project, it was a bunch of back-end Kotlin code that was doing stuff, talking over Bluetooth to a device, blah, blah, blah. The details don't matter.
Right.
But it unfolded. It just worked. And then, my wife and I are building a house, and I thought, okay, I want to be able to take a drone picture and overlay the property line from the plat file, the plat drawing, and all this stuff, and prompted out. Those actually didn't work quite so well. There's some GPS things that I'm doing wrong there, but I'm just kind of crapping out this software.
Yeah.
And if you're watching the video version of this,
right.
But I'll point this little squiggly green line back here.
It's over there, yeah.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah. Is a little thing running on a 1 gigabyte Raspberry Pi 5 that I prompted out in an afternoon, Sunday afternoon, because it was fun and. Yeah. Based on kind of a physical thing that electrical engineering undergrads do with an oscilloscope. All of this is very real. The game is definitely changed. That's my own story. Went from a year ago, it's not ready for prime time. And I'm like, oh, it's prime time now.
Oh, it has. And that December of 25 is when everyone kind of, I don't know if anyone has pinpointed the day, but everyone's kind of pinpointed that a shift happened in the quality of the models. That is really just, it's a cognitive evolution is kind of the terminology I've used to it, because now I get to start thinking in ideas and have the confidence in the coding agent to kind of fill in some of the ambiguity. So when I was building out this demo, and I haven't completed it, I'm doing it phase by phase, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I wanted to do a narrative around hospitality. So, as I'm plugging away in the prompt, I'm like, hey, I want to build a demo. I need 2 producers. I need a single consumer. We're going to get some Flink. We're going to tie things together. But I want to do a hospitality theme. That's as much as I gave it. And it came out with a really intelligent set of inputs, like check-in times versus orders to the room, and merging those together to get the 360 to then send an SMS alert to let someone know, hey, your room's ready to check in, or hey, your room is, or your food is on the way. And I didn't give it any of that, but it made a very sensical narrative to go along with this idea I had. And I was kind of left here just feeling, both shocked and empowered. It's a very weird feeling. And, we talk here at Confluent a lot about, providing a data substrate or a data plane, right? Forever.
I love the word substrate. It doesn't get used.
Yes, I use that term. I heard you say it first, and I reuse it. I think it's very appropriate. Yes, it's very.
I am flattered. I did not know that. Okay.
No, it's good. Substrate's excellent. But what's fascinating to me is we're evaluating a bunch of tools for marketing that are AI powered, and I realized that these tools like ChatGPT and Claude, they're an intelligence substrate. Right? Like, you have an idea for something, and now you can plug this brain into it, and now you just got to tweak many things, often in natural language, and you can build a real product. It's an amazing time.
Now, a quick word from our sponsor. Confluent Developer, the podcast, is brought to you by Confluent Developer, the website, which has everything you need as a developer of data streaming systems. And it's completely free. We've got curriculum, hands-on exercises, executable tutorials, the online data streaming engineer certification, also free, a way to find a meetup near you, those are free. Everything is there. I really want you to be successful in your journey as a data streaming engineer, and this is the site that has what you need. Check it out at developer.confluent.io. That's developer.confluent.io. Now, back to the show. Let me ask you about the anxiety that I think a lot of people are feeling, because you and I talking right now are talking as people who earn their living as, communicators, explainers, teachers, however you want to put it. Frankly, most of my time is as a manager, right?
Sure.
I spent the first 20 years of my career writing code, various platforms, various languages. But it's been a little bit since that's been the way that I earn a living, the way I obtain food and shelter, is not code. Likewise, you. Both of us have to know how to do it.
That's right.
We wouldn't be able to do what we do without that background, or wouldn't be credible at it. But if somebody comes in and takes the job of coding, you're fine. I'm fine. We are talking about this like, I have these cool toys to play with, and I made a better demo faster. That's happening in developer advocacy. Like, all of a sudden, kind of last summer, even before the inflection point in coding agents, our demos were way cooler. Where'd this web front end come from?
It's so pretty,
which is great. Yeah. But people worry. So, what do you think? Does the profession of software developer collapse? Does it shrink? Does it grow?
I think it changes. So
it's always been changing. So
it's always been changing.
It's a big change, though.
But right, and I think it's going to be a scary change. So I'll address this in a couple of ways. So the bulk of my experience has been operator engineer. I've been a SAN administrator. I've racked and stacked servers. I built data centers. And the only thing worse than building a data center is moving a data center. But we could spend a whole episode on that. So when cloud became prominent, I kind of had similar thoughts. Well, who's going to need network engineers? Who's going to need SAN administrators? Who's going to need operations people when all this is at the other end of an API, and AWS or Amazon or Microsoft or Google are going to manage all that for you? But guess what? Still network engineers. There's still SAN administrators. And you can make an argument that some of those people are doing better now than they were previously, even before the advent of the cloud, because more and more people are focusing towards coding. So those infrastructure people became a little bit more rare. So there's still some, there's still plenty of skin in the game. I think we're going to go through something similar with software engineering. I think there is going to be an overreaction. Not to say that some of the recent announcements in staff reduction are those overreactions, but I do think there's going to be some overreactions and over-reliance on the agentic AI, and it's going to have some lasting effects. Something's going to happen. Some business is going to lose a lot of money. Hopefully nobody loses their lives in the process, and I think there'll be a pullback. And then we'll start to see people realize these are tools. They're the most intelligent tools we've ever developed as humans. But they're still tools. And if you let them go wild, you're going to have nothing but noise and chaos. I still think you need to have a human in the middle for these things to be truly, truly effective. Now, will there be a reality when that human can be removed from the middle? I hope not. I think these intelligent tools will make us better at what we do. I think, there's this concept of the 10x engineer, right? Like the engineer out there, it's a unicorn, full stack engineer that puts out 10 times as much code as most of their contemporaries. Well, I think what's going to happen is the future is everyone's going to be a 10x engineer. And maybe there'll be a handful of 100x engineers. But I don't know if that takes away things. Maybe initially, but I think eventually we'll hit an equilibrium, and what we'll see is a unprecedented level of productivity across all industries. That could, I don't know, what happens if you reduce release cycles to minutes, or put out features in weeks instead of months? I think it could be a really exciting thing for everyone.
I tend to agree. Can I? I mean, you're the guest here, but I'm just
no, please, no. I love to hear you.
We're just talking about AI.
Conversation.
So a couple things. I mentioned Viktor. The other day, I had the opportunity to be actually in the same place with him.
Oh, it's great.
And I was watching him he was kind of showing me the thing he was building, because he had an idea that morning for a thing that he wanted to make. And he's got this, fairly disciplined process with OpenSpec, and it's a tool chain. And I'm watching him do AI assisted engineering, and I kind of caught myself sort of stepping back, and it's Visual Studio Code, it's Markdown, there are folders, they have Markdown files in them. This is not code. Okay, that's not. I know what code looks like, but just kind of like blurring your eyes a little bit and watching it, it looked like engineering was happening. Mm-hmm. And I think a non-technical user, I was kind of bummed. My wife was out of town, and she's tech savvy and very literate. She's not a developer,
right? So
she'd probably could eyeball the difference between Kotlin and Markdown.
Sure.
And know one is a programming language and one is an outline with words.
Yeah.
I think she would probably just kind of nail that one. But I think to her, this would just look like somebody was coding.
Right. Right. It seems
and it kind of did to me too.
Yes.
So number one, it even with the most advanced tools right now and the most advanced methods, you're an engineer. And then something goes wrong. You have to know enough about what's going wrong to dig in there.
Yeah.
And fix the problem. And if you don't have a background as an actual software developer, that's going to be tough.
I think so. And I do think there is it's about elevating. It's right. It's like almost like moving up the stack, but mentally moving up the stack. Because I think of, when you and I started in the industry, people wrote HTML and CSS.
I did.
Right? But with the advent of things like Wix and Squarespace, do people even do that anymore? Or these more advanced frameworks that kind of take out the minutia, right? So you work a level up. I had a guest on Life is But a Stream, Alex Hogan. He works for Cursor. And he said something that really especially resonates.
Yeah, that was a good episode. That's they're like a WarpStream customer, right?
Yeah, a WarpStream customer. So if you guys if the audience never heard of WarpStream, you should check out WarpStream. It's amazing. And some of the telemetry and accounting mechanisms, if you opt in as a Cursor customer, go through WarpStream, and they help improve their auto tab, which basically figures out what you think you want to say, which is pretty impressive. But he said he made a very audacious claim, and now I feel even stronger that he was correct. He said, code is a bug. What we really want are computers to do things. And we have to communicate with them because this is the shared language we have. But what if the shared language is closer to how we actually conduct and think? And it really blew my mind, right? Like, and people have their favorite, coding languages, and feel very strong about C versus Java versus Python. But I think I tend to agree with him, right? If I can get the computer to do what I want it to do, why do I need to speak its language? Why can't it speak mine?
Yeah. Why can't I just say computer? And then Majel Barrett's voice answers back.
That's right, because that's all we want. We just want the computer from Star Trek.
You said moving up the stack. I will 1,000% link in the show notes to the podcast I am about to discuss right now. It was an interview on the Pragmatic Engineer with Grady Booch.
Okay.
So Grady Booch is like one of the godfathers of software engineering, software architecture. And I could just say, I find him to be a deeply enjoyable thinker. He is a guy, this is what a mature intellect is like.
Okay.
Is kind of how I
want to see that in action.
He's always said, I saw him give a talk in person in the Denver area 25 years ago. And it's the first time I heard him say, the history of software engineering is one of increasing levels of abstraction.
Right.
That's what we do.
Right.
Because we're limited in, I'm going to use a philosophical term, our own noetic equipment, that is our minds.
Yes.
We're not getting any smarter.
That's right.
We got the minds that we have that can tackle problems of a certain complexity. We want to do more and build more. So we need chunkier, bigger, more abstract tools to build more stuff.
I like that.
We don't write everything in assembly language. Now, sometimes we do.
You used to write in assembly language, right? You used to write in assembly.
Yeah.
Like, who's doing that now?
Yes, it's fun. Right. But you're not going to make a living writing business software that way. You just can't. You're going to go out of business. So we have this thing, and he compellingly, beautifully makes the case that that's what this is. This is another layer of abstraction.
I think so.
He's like, software engineers, don't panic.
Right.
And so I go listen to that when we're done. You're done listening to me and Joseph's great interview, great thinker on this topic.
Right, because the more you know about what you want to build, the more effective the tools become, right? If I gave it like a 2-sentence prompt, build me end-to-end a data streaming platform, it might try and do that. It's not going to do a good job at it. But if I said, hey, I need a data substrate, I need a processing substrate. Oh, here are some tools that you can already use to build this. They're industry standard, they're well known. Here are the docs. That all comes from at least a place. You have to be grounded in what you want to do and know what you want to do. If you try, you could vibe code something simple. It's really simple. But if it has like production stakes, if it has lives, it has dollars and cents attached to it, that's when you really need to know what you're directing your junior coding assistant to do. And just to kind of tag off of what you mentioned with Viktor, he had an idea and he immediately jumped in and started doing it. I'm sure all of us have had ideas for something. I'm like, oh man, 2-3 years ago, that'll take me a week or two. I don't know. I may be able to get to that. Hopefully I can find the time. But now I've compressed time, and that same objective is possible in an afternoon. Now suddenly I have a lot more opportunities to build cool things.
Because the things that, for example, the green squiggly line in the background, there's like 3 or 4 OpenGL shaders in there to make it look like an oscilloscope trace.
Right.
I've never written an OpenGL shader in my life. Am I going to go look up how to do that or find an example to copy and paste and tweak? I'm just not. It's a fun idea. And this is just a fun little blinky thing in my background because it makes me happy, a true hobby project.
Right.
But it's a good example of a thing that it just wouldn't have contemplated as a project that I would take on.
Right.
And now the cost of creating that thing is low enough that I'm definitely going to contemplate that. I'm going to build that.
That's right.
And this is key. So there are some unanswered questions, and I want to be sure clear to everybody who's listening. I don't have this figured out. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. This is a significant shift in what we do, software engineering, a lot of kinds of economic activity. We don't know how it's going to work out, but I'm going to give my optimistic view, then I'll push back on it a little bit. Just these examples of hobby projects point out to me that there are so many things lying around on the ground that you can't even notice. You can't even contemplate building that thing because you're too busy doing everything else the hard way.
That's right.
20 or 30 years ago, I remembered it as an essay by Theodore Gray. He was a co-founder of Mathematica with Stephen Wolfram. I found it recently on his website still, and it was like a transcript of an interview. Maybe we'll link to it. But it was Mathematica was, as far as I know, the first software that did integration symbolically, like the hard way that you learned in calculus.
Right.
I mean, the first computers that we made were made to do numeric integration, right? The ENIAC is electrical numerical integrator and calculator. So, we've been doing it through numeric methods since there were digital computers, but now there was a program that would do true symbolic antiderivatives, and math educators freaked out. They're like, we're going to be stupid now. And who kind of just peels that onion, which, by the way, go ask a 12th grade AP calculus student in the second semester whether they get to use Mathematica or they're hating life on trig identities. Dear reader, they are hating life on trig identities.
It did not make it easier.
Okay, don't worry. But what Gray said was just peeling the onion. He's like, okay, you're a hunter-gatherer now.
Yes, I like that.
All day, you're trying to get food, trying to not die, trying to not get eaten, not get injured. And those weren't stupid human beings.
That's right.
Or anyone who is a hunter-gatherer. They're not like a different kind of intellectual stock. It's the same, I use the word noetic equipment. And you have to use all of it to survive there because you just have no other tools or abstractions to work with. And you and I teleported into that life. I've spent some time outdoors. I'm all right. I'd die.
I would die.
My outdoor skills, I live in Colorado. I'm not bad. I'd probably just die.
Sure.
Because it takes so much specialty. And we're used to all these levels of abstraction and tools and economic development that let us do all these things. So here's a new layer.
Exactly.
We get to build more. And the question is going to be, how much software do we need? Because if we can actually build 10x more software, there could be what economists call a demand elasticity curve there, where, okay, it's this much cheaper. Well, we're going to make some more, but we actually don't need all that. So employment in software engineering will contract, right? That's a possibility.
True.
And I just don't know. But it's also possible that we just get to make so much more stuff now, and that all of those ideas that, just like a hunter-gatherer isn't able to think about a data substrate because that's meaningless, there's all this stuff that was meaningless to us 6 months ago.
It's exactly right.
All of a sudden is attainable.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And I think there is some risk. And so this is what's so fascinating about the tool. I mean, because it's to kind of address what you said, I do think there'll be a glut of software we don't need, for sure. I think there'll be a lot of bespoke software that people will just build themselves, which I think will be interesting, but also very dangerous. But my hope is that ultimately, there's once again an equilibrium in how much software we build, and what we instead see, the software that is necessary gets higher and higher quality, right? Like, again, just to pick on an example that's close to you and I, when I got here almost 6 years ago, Confluent Cloud was a shell of what it is today in terms of features.
We've built
insane,
so much
right?
cool stuff.
Now, what if we were able to say, okay, it took 6 years to get this. What if we were able to do the same amount of work in 2?
Right.
What downstream possibilities would that have provided to our customers by having table flow 4 years earlier or things like that? And that's where I think the optimistic Joseph is really excited, because I think we're going to get levels of quality and features that maybe would have taken us 10 years from now, and we'll see them sometime next year or in Q4 or Q3. So that's exciting to me. But then there's also this risk of cognitive dissonance, right? We've unloaded so much to the agents that people don't really start to, maybe within a generation or two, really don't understand how anything works, and you have the Wall-E scenario, right? And I worry about that. But here's the fascinating thing about these tools. There is a skill you can install for Claude called learning opportunities. It was put together by a professor of psychology. I can't remember where he teaches, but it's pretty easy to find the skill. And loading skills in the Claude is very easy because it's on a marketplace. And basically at the end of a Claude session, you just invoke this skill. And it looks at everything you did in Claude, and it starts to challenge you and spends a 10, 15-minute session learning about what you just did. Like, hey, why did we choose to remove this variable? Why was it better to time bound this? Why did we put the skills.md in this folder? And not only have I learned from it and it reinforced the things I did, I found flaws in my design just by it asking me questions. I was like, you know what? We really don't need that thing. We should get rid of that. And it's like, you know what? You just identified an enhancement. That is great. And the fact that the tool at the end of the conclusion of building what I ultimately wanted to build can have a conversation with me about what I just learned.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to react to that. Like that's what exists today. How many other skills are just going to either, prop us up or spark innovation? It's an exciting time.
It is.
A little scary, but exciting.
A little scary. I got one more thought. I get it. This is talking a lot for you being the guest, but thanks for.
I do that. See, that's what happens. You get two podcast hosts on it. That's what happens. Sorry.
We're just talking.
It is.
So Dario Amodei, co-founder and CEO of Anthropic. Love the last name. A lot to love about that guy. I don't know Dario, but
yes,
there's just a lot that's admirable about the way that company conducts itself, in my personal opinion. Again, nothing to do with Confluent here. And he said recently, software engineering will be fully automatable within 12 months. Now, I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I am in fact a skeptic of that kind of claim, which is kind of helped me be late to the party in AI here, because I hear claims like that, like, oh, we're cooked, everything is super intelligence around the corner of the singularity. I'm like, which gets us back to, I think you used the word intent earlier, or you got close to it. Large language models and the agents that wrap them are capable of some incredible things, like you talked about. Certainly very good at writing a lot of kinds of software right now, not everything and not perfect, and they'll get a little better or a lot better. But one thing they don't do is want.
That's true. They don't have a desire.
They do not intend. They do not desire. There is no real goal. I mean, you give them a goal. There's the specs, and they go through the steps. They love, step things. I'm anthropomorphizing and saying they love. Yep. But the intent, the desire, the goal, the thing that we want to build, we're the only ones that can want.
That's right.
It's a fundamental kind of principle of economics that wants are unlimited and the ability to supply them is limited.
It's limited.
This has made it cheaper to supply certain kinds of wants. We still get to intend and desire and plan and goal and build. And we get a cheaper way to do it. And, we do have to be careful and think about disruption and jobs that are eliminated and people that need help as a result. And,
of course.
That's beyond our scope here, and those are real things. But this, to me, just refocuses my mind on what it means to be a human. Because now you got this machine that's not human, that's really good at using language a lot like a human, and really good at turning natural language into code, which I've always said is kind of the fundamental alchemy that programmers do. We take the mental states of like what operates a business and turn that into machine. Right. And now we've got a machine that's kind of good at that.
That's right.
And so, I've got some thinking to do about that, but it refocuses me on, the humans are the only ones that long, that desire, that have a thing that they're upset doesn't exist and they want to bring it into existence.
Right. Their only need is to execute whatever we supplied for it. But all of the genesis of creativity is still bound to us humans. And until someone can show that they built some type of agentic or AI system that is coming up with unique thought, completely unprompted, then we start to get into Skynet.
That'll be a different technology.
That'll be a different technology.
Podcast,
and there's another aspect. I don't know why Skynet made me think of Alex Hoagland again, but he mentioned that they're using Cursor to build Cursor. And that's kind of fascinating, right? Is the fact that you build a tool, the tool gets better, and the tool makes the tool better, turtles all the way down. I don't know if there's another time in history we've ever had like a self-fulfilling, self-improving tool like that. I don't know. It just seems kind of magical.
Well, yeah, I mean, in little ways, like compilers compile themselves.
That's true. I mean, you probably use an IDE to improve your IDE, but
machine tools, you use machine tools to make better machine tools.
Yeah. But what's cool, you can be like, hey, Cursor, what sucks about you? It can tell you.
Right.
And suddenly you now have things to work on.
But you can't say, Cursor, what do you want to be?
That's true. Yes.
That is what a person does. And now we have better tools for turning those wants into real things. And I like it.
The most optimistic view I can think, kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, is that we now have these tools that help us fulfill our human desires in an easier, faster, better way.
My guest today has been Joseph Morais. Joseph, thanks for being a part of the Confluent Developer Podcast.
And thank you for having me, Tim. It's wonderful. And if your audience enjoyed our banter, please check out Life is But a Stream.